Welcome to Out of the Box with Christine, the podcast for conscious entrepreneurs. Are you willing to step into your greatness? Are you ready to shine? Well, get ready, truth seeker. You're in for an amazing ride. And now, here's the host of the show, Christine Blosdale.
Welcome back to Out of the Box with Christine. I am your host, motivational multimedia coach, Christine Blosdale. And today I am actually very excited about today's show because my guest is Marc Joseph, who is the co-founder of babyboomer.org. And if you're a baby boomer, if you're a Gen Xer, this is definitely for you. I am so excited because I want to talk about, Marc, I want to talk about this explosion of creativity and entrepreneurs who are creating their own business at a much later in life time frame, especially compared to our grandparents, our parents and our grandparents. So I'm so excited to have you on Out of the Box with Christine. Welcome, Marc.
Oh, so appreciate you inviting me. Thank you so much.
Yes. So, I mean, I've noticed my clients, right? These are mostly predominantly women that are in their 50s, 60s, 70s. I have quite a few that are in their mid 70s, but I find that there is this explosion of talent and a resurgence of people starting their own business later in life. And I just wanted to know what your thoughts are on this and also how we can support them, because I know you're a wonderful entrepreneur yourself.
Well, let's talk about the baby boomers, say just here in the USA, okay? Because it's worldwide, but I'll just kind of concentrate on the ones that are over here in the USA. And there are still 12 million baby boomers who own their own businesses. So step away from that and think about that. Those are these businesses. 12 million of them are still owned. So you've still got these active baby boomers that have these businesses. Now, you know, what's going to happen in a few years? Are they going to pass them on to their kids? They're going to sell them. They're going to stay in them. But they're there. So that's a huge number, and that's something we should think about: is why are so many of these baby boomers still entrepreneurs and owning their own businesses?
I think it tends to be that at this point in life too, you know, I've done the whole thing of working for, I've worked for a company, I've worked for a nonprofit organization, I worked for others, and I did the work, you know, I did the stuff I loved, and I did the stuff I didn't love so much, you know. It was kind of like being a teenager and getting your allowance, and you have to do certain things, right? So I found myself, though, after 20 something years too, um, making a lot of money for someone else. And I was like, at some point too, I was kind of thrust into starting my own business. But I was like, you know, what if I took all that energy and my creativity and focused it on something that I really was passionate about? And that's the common denominator that I see with my clients that come to me that are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, is that they're really passionate about something and they want to share their wisdom or their expertise with the world. Whereas before they were fitting in like a cog in a machine type thing. You know, they were doing a certain thing to help a company grow or expand. And for the first time, and a lot of times the kids have, you know, they're old enough that they've left the nest, the empty nesters, so they say, but they're in a place right now where they feel that they can express themselves and can do what they're really super passionate about. And that's what I love. I mean, personally, I just love fostering that and supporting that as much as I can.
Well, let's talk about small businesses and medium-sized businesses. You know, don't lose sight that 50% of them fail in the first 5 years. Okay, you know, and let's talk about why do they fail? Why do all these businesses fail in the first 5 years? Well, 42% of them fail because they don't have the right market or they don't have the right product. You know, I learned early on in my career when I was the buyer for a department store that you buy for your customers. You don't buy for yourself. You've got to be able to understand your customers. So what happens is, you know, 40% of these businesses fail because you think you've invented the greatest thing since sliced bread, but it doesn't work. There's no market out there. You haven't done your research. So that's one reason why these businesses fail. Another reason why 50% of businesses fail in the first 5 years is, 30% of them don't have enough cash. So when you think about when you're starting a business in today's world, you've got to, that you've got to have enough cash to start, as if you don't have sales for 6 months, because it takes a while to build a business. And if you don't have that and you haven't planned ahead, that's why 30% of these businesses don't make it, is because they run out of money. Another 23% fail because they have poor teamwork, or the entrepreneur doesn't communicate. So, with one of the first lessons that entrepreneurs need to learn is that you're not the expert in everything. There are some things that you just don't know about.
What are you saying, Mark?
So you've got to be able to find people and organizations to do things that you can't. Taking me for example, I love marketing and merchandising, but I don't like accounting. If you stick me in front of a spreadsheet for 8 hours, I will go absolutely nuts. So I've got to find someone who loves accounting, who really is passionate about that. So you've got to be able to surround yourself, as you're an entrepreneur, with people that have strengths that you do not have. So first of all, you got to admit that you don't have these strengths. That's a tough thing for an entrepreneur to do, but you've got to admit these things. And then once you do that, you've got to be able to realize that you've got to do that. Then you also have to, entrepreneurs have great ideas in their own heads, but they got to communicate it with their staff. They got to communicate it with the people that they're doing business with. And so that's why, half of them fail. So step back a second and then say, okay, why then are all of these older people starting businesses? Well, what happens as you get older, decade after decade after decade, you get smarter because you make more mistakes and you learn from your mistakes. So you're much smarter today at 50 than you were at 20 because you've screwed up so many more times.
Yep.
And you learn from that stuff, and that's how you build your business. So I think that's one of the reasons that you're seeing so many older people saying, I can do this. I now have the confidence to do this because I have learned from my mistakes.
Oh yeah, I think you nailed it right there. And what you said, it was so important for entrepreneurs too, and really of any age, but to know what you're good at. Like, I know what I'm good at, and I'm damn good at it. I am really good at it. I'm one of the best at it. Okay. I'm good at that. But like you said, like accounting, like, I wouldn't go and work on my car because I don't know how to do that. So delegating, and sometimes it can be hard because as entrepreneurs, we have this idea that it's just us against the world. We're just gonna like work harder, and no, you need to work smarter. And a lot of times that's knowing what you're good at and what you're not good at. And if you're not good at something, to have the ability to delegate. And because I don't like it when people say, well, I feel like I'm giving up control. You're not. You're always in control of your business, but to delegate it and to do it smartly. I have one media client who gave the keys to the castle, so to speak, to someone that they hired very inexpensively through one of these online things where the person don't know where they're from, don't know who they are or where they're from really, but they were cheap, right? And they gave the keys to the castle for the website, for the YouTube channel, and all of this stuff. And lo and behold, after having access to that and them doing a little bit of work, this person wanted a lot more money. And my client was like, well, I don't have that kind of money. And they said, well, too bad. And they locked them out of their own website. The YouTube channel, all the videos were taken down. Lord knows if they were really malicious what they could do. But like what I tell all of my clients, when I set them up on certain things too, when I have to set them up on software and things, I'm like, you do it with your name, your email, your password, because you need to be in control of that. Don't give the keys to the castle to someone who you don't know and who's 10 million miles away from you. Because if your business relies on a website or relies on a YouTube channel, then you can find yourself in a lot of trouble. So it's being smart in your delegation, I would say. Do your research, like you said.
Oh, absolutely. You're right on with that.
Yeah. And also the idea too that we at this point in our life where we have made all those mistakes, that is so important. And I also think for those people who are in, let's say, human resources, who are in charge of bringing on people, hiring people into their businesses, their companies, their organizations, look at the person who is in their 50s, 60s, heck, 70s. If they're applying, look at those people because they've been around the block and they have known what works, what doesn't work. They're not fresh out of, fresh out of the oven going, "Oh, let me try this, let me try that." They've already kind of been around the block and they know, hopefully by that point they'll know also some people skills. But making those mistakes early in life is really it's actually very valuable. I always say that you have to make a mistake, you have to make those mistakes and mess up in life in order to actually be a success, because nobody is perfect, and you have to learn from those instances that you have. Have you had
Yeah,
those? Have you had those instances? Have you had some some major life opening moments?
well, you got to take a look at baby boomers today are so much younger than when their parents were.
Oh
I
yes.
remember, when I was, in my 40s and I was looking at my parents in their 60s, I would say, man, they are old. I'm never going to get that old. Well, now that I'm there, I say, man, I am young. Yeah, I got a lot more years left. So I think if you're hiring baby boomers, you're looking at baby boomers, they're just a whole different generation. And that's one of the reasons we started babyboomer.org, because you've got this whole vital generation that just seems to be, even though they're in their 60s and 70s, they're acting like they're in their 40s and their 50s. And so there's a real opportunity for any entrepreneur to find someone with experience who, they're not going to take over their business when they're 50 or 60 years old. They're there to add value. And so that's a good point that you brought up.
And I just had a great idea too. Well, are people able to like advertise or promote their business on babyboomer.org? Because it's a great market. I mean, it's my that's my market. That is my demographic. Absolutely. I don't have 20-year-olds coming to me. They're on the TikToks. They're all good. I've got the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. I have one client he's a blessing. He's 81 years old and he wants to start a podcast. He wants to do a legacy. He wants to have his life story. It's not to make money. It's just for legacy purposes. But my goodness, he's brave to take on the technology and everything. But yeah, are there ways for people if they wanted to reach your audience at babyboomer.org?
Well, there you go. You just gave us a great idea. Tomorrow, there will be ways.
I'm a motivational multimedia coach, Mark. That's what I do. I think of these things. Absolutely. It is. Yeah. And all the disposable income, because they're not spending it all on their kids. Maybe their cats or dogs, but not on the kids at the
Well,
moment.
it's fascinating if you actually take a look at the baby boomer generation. These are people that were born between 1946 and 64. So there's 18 years. That's a
I,
couple,
I
couple
just snuck in
generations.
there. I'm in 64. I just
Oh,
got
yeah?
in there.
You
Yes.
just got
Yes.
in there.
Yeah.
So, so they're currently between the age of 57 and 75, 76 shortly. But, here in the US, there are 71.6 million of them. That's a huge number. That's bigger than most countries, and they hold 51% of the wealth. So yes, you're absolutely right. They
Mm-hmm.
own a lot of the dollars. They hold 70% of the disposable income here in the US. So they're the ones out there spending the money. They spent last year 548 billion. That's with a B, dollars.
Wow.
This generation, they spent more than any other generation has spent per transaction ever. Their net worth of baby boomers is $70 trillion. I don't even know what trillion is, but it's $70 trillion out there. Yeah, they hold $20 trillion of stocks and mutual funds. The average baby boomer today spends $63,000 a year. You can't say that from the generations before us. So
No.
you're absolutely right. This is a very wealthy kind of generation that's got money to spend, money to share, and they still want to work.
And wealthy in all aspects, I believe. Wealthy in a financially, secure, pretty much, because and they've weathered all kinds of stuff. It's like they've weathered wars, and I mean, I'm not going to say famine, but my goodness, I mean, the stock market's going up and down. Yes, war, all that stuff that's just takes such a huge hit out of humanity. But they've weathered through all that. But they also are wealthy in their knowledge. In that is something that you cannot, I was trying to say to someone, because I had a project that I was working on. And for me, it took me maybe an hour, 2 hours to complete this project. And now it's because I have 25 years experience in media behind me that I was able to do that in that time frame. Whereas someone else, it may take them a full day, to do it. But those experiences that we have make it so that we can do things in a short, concise manner and not be like all over the place. And that takes years and years of experience, developing that throughout your lifetime. So yeah, if I'm talking to those HR professionals. If you've got somebody that is interested in joining your organization or your company, and they are a baby boomer, you better get them to the top of the list, and have that conversation with them, because I think there's so much that they can offer, and there's so
I
much
think,
that they could offer the world.
yeah, I think what causes a lot of that. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. The baby boomer generation is as diverse as any generation that there ever was, as far as politics and religion and morals and everything. I mean, we are extremely diverse. I mean, our parents were diverse, but our parents are the ones that went through the Depression, that went through World War II. They became very conservative, and they raised us in a pretty conservative kind of atmosphere because they saved the world. I mean, that generation saved the world. But we're just as diverse as anything that this country has ever seen. But the one thing baby boomers have in common is the shared experience that we just went through, or everything that you just talked about over those 18 years that we were growing up. We have this shared experience. There's all kinds of things that cause this shared experience. The first thing is, when we were growing up, there were only 3 television stations.
Yes.
Everybody had a landline, so we had all this information, kind of all shared kind of information that we grew up with. But we were there here in the U.S. for both of the Kennedy assassinations. When
Yeah.
Martin Luther King was assassinated. Those are all shared experiences. We landing on the moon. I mean, we were there. We were the kids that were growing up when the landing of the moon. We were here when birth control became very widespread. I mean, that was our generation that helped make that happen. We were here for Vietnam, whether it was good or bad. We were there. We were right in the middle of it. We were here at Kent State when we lost 4 people because of Vietnam. We were here for the riots in the streets. But what we have all in common is music. Think about the music. I mean, we have Elvis and the Beach Boys and the Beatles and Three Dog Night. And, we've got the Supremes, and we got all of the great songs that we all have in common. That you put the music on, we all happen to start to dance. We share that experience. We share the movie experience. We had Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid. We had Jaws and all the Spielberg movies. We had Animal House, Star Wars, The Godfathers. So we had all those shared experiences that kind of bring us together.
And I'll say this, we did, when you talked about the music too, we had the best music. I'm sorry. you know, you cannot, no, 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 nobody can argue the point. But we had soul music, we had R&B, we had Motown, we had Al Green, we had Marvin Gaye, we had Aretha Franklin, we had all of that. And I tried today because I'll go, because I don't want to be like my grandmother, back in my day, you know. but I'm finding myself do that. I'm like, I'm trying to listen to like stuff now, and I'm like, it's all synthesized and the lyrics are all weird. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we had the best music. I just recently had my 58th birthday, and all I wanted to do was dance. Because
Ah,
when I was little, that's what my mom, she would take me to this. In Los Angeles, we had a discotheque for kids. This is so LA. It was a discotheque for kids. So on a Saturday morning, you could bring your children and they could dance in a disco with the disco ball and the great music and everything. And that's all I loved doing that. And so that's what I wanted to do for my birthday. So we got a Spotify list together and played all the greats, the Jackson 5, you know, all that great music. And it brought back a lot of memories for me and for my friends, because they were like, I love this song. I was like, I know we had great music back then as well. And you're right. We lived through, I came in because I was born in 64. So I came into, and I think even though I was a baby, there was a general feeling that, especially in America, that with all the tragedy, with the Kennedy's assassination. I mean, geez, both Bobby and our president John F. Kennedy, and Martin and Malcolm, and there was so much. There was the racism that was happening, right? There was also the birth of the feminist movement or the women's movement. That came along with birth control and entry into the workforce more and more. But there was a bit of a sadness. I noticed when I came into this planet, there was a bit of sadness, and I think that was partly because of those shocks that those on a global scale, right? But so many people were taken, and leaders and people that a lot of Americans looked up to as well.
the interesting thing you brought up earlier is experiences with your parents and your grandparents. And if you think about it, we all have memories of our grandparents, and you think about how did they influence us. And again, the grandparents, they came through difficult with the Depression and World War II. What did they leave with us? What are the great memories that we have? And it's up to us as baby boomers ourselves is to help create those memories for the greatest generation coming up today. I am totally convinced that these kids that are 1 to 10 years old today are going to become the greatest generation this world has ever known. I mean, when you think about it, as soon as they come out of the womb, they're on the internet. They got their own iPhones. They got their, they are exposed to all kinds of electronic things. And when they're 1, 2, 3, 4 years old, I mean, I didn't get on the internet till I was 40 years old. So, it's a whole different world coming up here. So we, as baby boomers, who are many of us grandparents and a lot of us still parents, we have to influence this greatest generation and teach them, again, going back to, we got all this knowledge because we failed so many times, teach them how about life beyond just what's on the internet. We've got to be able to balance that, and it's important for us as baby boomers and grandparents to get involved now with these kids.
Oh, I so agree with you. Experiences, because my whole childhood is so much as my grandmother. So much of my those beautiful moments was with my grandmother, and they weren't moments on the internet. They were little trips driving out to Arizona, or just playing a sporting game and then looking up and seeing my grandmother there. But just all those things, those experiences that my grandmother gave me. And you know what, too, for us baby boomers, we learned from our grandparents much more than I think in any generation, because as at that time, a lot of times both parents, or if you had, I had my parents divorced. So if you're a single parent, you're working, you got to take care of the bills, you got to pay, get the food on the table. So the grandparent would be a lot of times the one that would be taking care or looking after the children, right? And for me, that bond that I had with my grandmother was so strong that I learned from her. And she was one of these people too that she was an Aries, and so she could get really angry. But it was like she'd blow up, and then it would be done. It'd be done. It would be over. And but her resilience is what I admired, and I believe that I picked that from her. I got that. I that was my inheritance. She didn't have any money, but I got that resilience of, if something goes wrong, okay, all right, well, let's try again, or let's try something else. And she never got knocked down long enough, even after losing children and all kinds of different tragedies and things like that. And you're right, she went through the Depression. That was a tough time for America as well. But I think I look back very fondly. Did you have a wonderful relationship with a grandparent?
Yeah, I was very lucky. My grandmother lived a couple blocks away. My
Me
uncle lived
too.
up the street.
Yes.
Yeah,
Did you ride your bike to her house, or
yeah,
walk to their house?
yeah. A whole different generation. I mean, because today my kids, I got two grandkids here in Arizona. I've got two in Texas, and I got two in Orlando, Florida. So it's a whole different way of raising kids. But we talked about the great things of the baby boomer generation, but there really is an underbelly that I'm real concerned about. And that is that 30% of grandparents today are classified as remote. In other words, they're not involved in their kids bringing up and growing up. That means that one out of every three of us, they're just not involved. I mean, they may show up for a birthday or they may go for Christmas, but they just really don't care. They figure, well, I'm a baby boomer. I raised my kids. I raised great kids. Let them take care. I got to go play pickleball. There's all kinds of reasons. I mean, but a lot of that. So that means one out of every three of us. I mean, that's a big number. That's something that somehow we got to fix that. Because with COVID and everything else that's happening, we're dying faster. We're not around as long as we used to be, and so we've got to get more involved. Now, a lot of that is caused by us as the grandparents. In other words, there's all kinds of reasons why we may not be involved with our kids, grandkids growing up. One reason is we may not have liked the spouse that our kid married. Okay, that causes strain.
Right.
That mean, we may be giving our kids unsolicited advice. And they say, hey, you taught me well. I'll be the boss here. You don't have to be the boss here. We may be doing that. We may show up at their house unannounced, and the kids don't like that. They don't like those grandparents involved. But undermining our children's authority with their kids is causing problems between our generation and the younger generation. Tendency for us to play favorites, and I've got 6 grandkids. I have a favorite, but I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell them. I'm not even going to tell my wife. It's because you can't play those favorites. We manipulate these little kids. That causes problems. We may not have the empathy that it takes to raise a 3 and 4-year-old. And so that causes problems. So grandparents, we may demand kids to do this. We may buy them with vacations and money. So we are the ones causing a lot of that problem, and we as a generation have to wake up to that. And we've got to get more involved in the raising of this greatest generation that's coming up.
Oh, I wholeheartedly agree. I love that. Oh, and what a great way to wrap up this show. I love that. So that's a good call out for people, if you do have grandkids, to see about how you can make an impact. Because I would love to one day have have grandkids where they look at me in the same way that I looked at my grandmother, and gain knowledge and wisdom, and also forgiveness as well, because my grandma, everybody's got shortcomings. And when you have someone who takes care of you all the time, you get to see everything about them. And you go, okay, grandma, I'll forgive you for that. But it's so important. I think it is. I think it's really, really important, because it's a unique relationship that the baby boomer generation can have with this next generation, which my guest, Marc Joseph, says is the greatest generation. So we will see. We will see. Marc, how can people find out more about the baby boomer generation and more about your website? Where should they go?
So easily, just go to babyboomer.org. You can come onto the site and see all kinds of stuff. I've written a couple books. My children's book is I Don't Want to Turn 3. And they can find that on gramsjeffrey.com. We've got that, or it's on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, about other 100 sites out of that. My first book that I wrote was a business book called The Secrets of Retailing, How to Beat Walmart. And that's available on Amazon and so forth too. So, any of those ways to find us, just come to babyboomer.org, because we want you to be part of the conversation.
Get over there, join them, and say hi to Marc if you caught this show on YouTube or on your favorite podcast platform. Make sure that you say hi to Marc and say that you heard him on Out of the Box with Christine. That would be awesome. Thanks again, Marc, so much for reiterating to me how awesome our generation is, the baby boomers. Thank you so much. And folks, again, you can find out more by going to babyboomer.org. That's babyboomer.org. A link will be in the show notes for you. And I want to say thank you as well for tuning in today. If you want more information about this show, you can go to outoftheboxwithchristine.com. And if you want more information about me, go to christineblosdale.com. Again, all those links will be in the show notes. If you enjoyed this, and if you think someone else could enjoy this, one of your friends, one of your family members, share it with them. Share this program with them so that they can also hear my beautiful guest, Marc Joseph. All right. Thanks again, Marc. Thank you, wonderful listeners and viewers on YouTube. And as I always say, remember to think outside of that damn box. Bye for now.